isn't it weird how for some reason eye contact is almost awkward. You ever make eye contact
Mm.
with someone in public and then you both
Oh
just
yeah.
look in any other direction?
Especially if you know the person and you don't want to talk to them, or you just
Oh,
weren't prepared to see them.
yeah, that's a whole
Like in
different
our
thing.
local grocery store at home, that happens all the time. People who know are from a small town get that. When you go back to your hometown, you're like, oh, I see that person that I recognize from school or
Yeah.
church, and you're like, I'm not ready to talk to you in this moment.
Yeah, sometimes you
Little
have a
things like that.
complicated history.
Yeah.
Or you just don't have time and you would love to chat with that person. You just have a million other things happening.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it just eye contact is like weirdly intimate and we always kind
Very.
of avoid it. I've seen like so many people recently, and not that this is new, but so many people like in airports or on planes just wear sunglasses.
Really? I
Yeah.
haven't really noticed that.
Yeah. And if
I've noticed AirPods because I do that. But
yeah, for sure. But it's kind of nice if you just really want to check out, if you wear sunglasses and AirPods and maybe a hoodie, like you're in your own world.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, that's what I loved about COVID is being able to just put on a mask and literally kind of like hide, hide away from society or just, I don't know.
Why? Why do you want to hide?
I mean, that's a really good question. I think that there were some days where I just felt like I want to be checked out from the world.
Yeah.
I want to be like in my own headspace, which is why AirPods are really nice because you can put on noise cancellation, but especially with masks and COVID, like it was just literally, it felt like no one will recognize me. I am completely anonymous. Not that people recognize you, but you know what I mean? Like, what if you randomly run into somebody at the grocery store, like we're talking about? And for whatever reason, I just like wanted the ability to shut that off.
Sure.
And just be in my own little world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what's nice. Like I'm saying with the AirPods and the sunglasses, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
If you're walking through the airport or something, I mean, I know it's like kind of tacky to wear sunglasses inside, but it's also not. Sometimes you're just like, I don't really want to engage.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I'm just like, I'm not having a great day. I don't like it, or it's all very overstimulating.
Yeah.
And there's a lot
really
of noises, there's a lot happening, and like sometimes I'm walking through security at the airport and I'm like, I'm so overstimulated right now. I want to just check out.
So true.
So I get it sometimes, but eye contact is weirdly intimate, and that's what the sunglasses help you to basically avoid. You're essentially you can go the entire day
without having to have an interaction.
Like you might look
eyes.
you might look at people in the eyes, but they can't tell if you're looking at them in the eyes. So you know what I mean? So you don't have to just deal with it. But it's like, I was thinking about it in our neighborhood. We have these long sidewalks, long straight sidewalks.
Yeah, really good walking neighborhood.
We have a phenomenal walking neighborhood.
We're not going to name it just in case people find us, but we'll just leave it at that.
We have a great walking neighborhood. And we go on walks pretty much every day.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes weather, is
weather
not
dependent,
cooperative,
but yes,
pretty much we go on walks every day.
Rain or shine, summer, winter, whenever.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And on the long straightaways, if somebody's walking towards you, the neighborhood has a lot of hills and a lot of curves, but there's a couple of long straightaways.
Yeah.
And if somebody's walking towards you, they could be like a quarter mile away and you can see them and they can see you.
Yeah.
So you're walking towards each other. And then there's it's almost like there's an etiquette where like some people are just going to keep their eyes down and just pass you by.
Yeah.
But some people, they kind of realize like, at 20 paces from each other, you kind of look up and maybe make eye contact.
Yeah.
And then you acknowledge that
maybe.
you see that person. And then, 10 paces from each other, you kind of look up and you kind of smile.
Yeah.
And then maybe 5 paces, 4, 3, 2, as you're passing,
you say hi.
Maybe you say hello.
Or you give a little head nod.
Or a head nod. Yeah. But
I always say hi. I default to hi. I don't feel like you do, but I do.
No. But you don't want to, I think it's creepy to maintain eye contact that whole time.
Yeah.
So if you make eye contact at 30 paces and you're still trying to make eye contact.
Someone else would break that would be very creepy. If I was walking and someone was maintaining eye contact with me from like that far away, I would turn around and run. I'm sorry, I would.
Right.
That would freak me out.
And meanwhile, they could have just been listening to a podcast that was encouraging them
like
to make more
out.
eye contact.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
okay.
Yeah, maybe they were like, I'm really going to try to make more eye contact and just connect, and
Connect
maybe,
to the people around me.
yeah. So maybe they've been wearing sunglasses for like a month. They finally come out of the woods, and then they're looking at you in the eye, and then you run away.
Well,
I get it.
they got to learn that lesson. It's creepy.
Yeah,
It
I
is.
know it is. I know it.
There is a strange, but you're right. There's a strange level of intimacy with eye contact for sure. Yeah, that's interesting.
I have nothing to say about it really, other than that. Well,
so today's episode is on Communion, the song Communion,
which is my favorite song on the record.
It's also my favorite song. I personally feel like you aren't allowed to have the same favorite song as me, but it's fine.
No, that's great. I agree. So you can absolutely pick a new one. Or is it the artist right to choose which is their favorite?
It's fine. I love all of them, so it's
fair
fine.
enough.
It's like choosing between my children. But
yeah, I love this song. It's such a great.
I mean, Communion honestly is about intimacy, right? It's about what is that Thomas Merton quote? I think I sent it to you so that we could talk about it in this podcast. Maybe that's a good place to start.
This is Thomas Merton. The deepest. Gosh. Thomas Merton said, the deepest level of communication is not communication, but communion. It is wordless. It is beyond words. It is beyond speech. It is beyond concept. The deepest level of communication is not even communication.
Yeah.
But communion.
I think that's so powerful and so beautiful, and honestly is a great way to start talking about this song, because that's kind of the cry of this song, truly, is just communion, something that's intangible almost. Like, it's hard to nail down what communion with your creator, with God, the God of the universe, actually is, what that means, what that looks like, how you get that. But that quote kind of embodies it, is it's beyond words. It's beyond communication. It's literally abiding with each other and getting to know each other on a level that words don't even need to exist, because you're just understanding each other, Yeah,
I mean, they're the same, like, root word, communion, communication, community, commune. It's all the same kind of root word, but I feel like communion is that, like, deepest level of it.
Yeah.
Where there's something unspoken, but it's just an intimacy. There's a oneness. There's a level of connection that's more than just, hey, we talked about it, or like we talk when it's convenient or when we need to. It's more than just a utility. It's not just like we're communicating just because, like, I need something, you have it, we need to trade or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like when there's communion is a whole different thing. There's like an understanding.
Yeah.
There's just a mutual,
and a desire to just like be with the other person, just to be with them. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you wrote this song, which I love. I just said that, but I love this song. You wrote it.
Me too.
Maybe not in the. You said it was kind of like a cry of desperation from your heart almost. So you were maybe were you saying you were not in the best space when you wrote it?
I think I had been. This song came close to the end of the writing for the record process. So it was. I think it was just a year ago that we wrote this song, and during that time, it was a really rough season that I was walking through. I hate even calling it a season. Why do we have these like Christianese terms that I just keep pulling from, Like, I don't know that it was a season. I still feel like I'm not on the other side of that. So I don't know if it was just a season or if it's the new reality that I find myself in of faith, just feeling harder and God feeling more distant. But I was just not walking through a great time. And the old ways of connecting with God weren't working anymore. The ways that had always been like tried and true, prayer tools or whatever, were tools for me to be able to access like deeper forms of meditation or whatever, just communicating with God. It just wasn't working anymore. And I was so frustrated and angry and confused, and mix that in with all kinds of other things that were going on in life at that time. And just like really, it came from such a kind of a dark place, And I remember walking into that and just feeling like I do not care about ruffling any feathers. I have to be just completely honest with these two writers. I had never written with them before. And so normally in a situation like that, I would go in there kind of being like, how do I just keep the peace? Like, what are you thinking about things? What are you thinking? How do I not ruffle any feathers? How do I chameleon myself? And I just had zero ounce of that. I didn't have time for that. I just was like, this is where I'm at. Do you want to write from that place? Will you go there with me? And they totally met me there. And it's the sweetest song on the record. Ironically, it's the most pure offering, I feel like, of a song that I've written in the last couple of years. It's such, there's just such a sweetness to it. And I didn't expect that going in that day for sure. I was like, we're going to write some angsty rock and roll, I'm in the pits of despair song. And this one like doesn't even
so
have that
peaceful.
in it. Yeah.
It's so peaceful. It's inviting. It's like, it's warm. I love it. I listened to it a couple of weeks ago. I was walking over the causeway in our hometown in Florida. You know, we have these causeways connecting the mainland to the beach side, and I was walking the bridge as we would often do, like around sunset or sunrise. And I was listening to this song, and it totally came alive for me in a new way. There, like the line, show me your beauty in the morning light, in the painted sky, to see your heart in everything. It just that really struck me, and it's like I don't even need to explore the theology of like the why that line strikes me. Like I think sometimes I would have been like, okay, so did God design the sunrise? Is the sunrise supposed to be telling me something? Like I would just kind of spin out of control with it. And I instead of forcing it, I just kind of let that line hit me. And it was, and like you said, it was just such a sweet offering. And I can hear the desperation, like the cry of desperation, maybe specifically in the bridge.
Yeah.
But that line just was such a warm line. I just love that. Show me your beauty in the morning light, in the painted sky. I want to see your heart in everything.
Yeah. Honestly, what that reminds me of is just how easy it is to complicate things.
Yeah.
Communication, communion, relationships, like it's so easy, especially when things are not working the same way that they always have, to just kind of be like, I have to solve this formula. I have to crack this code. I have to, do more or be more or whatever. Like it feels, at least for me, it's just this temptation to like complicate it.
Yes, totally.
And that is just kind of a natural, I think, response.
Yep.
But the truth is that we have to do the opposite of that. And what this song reminds me of is like the simplicity, getting back to the simplicity, getting back to finding God in a sunrise, in a sunset, like just abiding, just being, trying to enter into communion with our Creator just through being and living and breathing and like acting in life. You know what I mean? Like and operating in life. Like,
creation points us to Him and speaks to His character. There is something about the beauty of a sunrise or sunset that is moving. There just is. And if you're a person of faith, it just connects you to the Creator in a way that, again, I don't really have to spin my wheels trying to think about the theology of it. I just know it in my core, and what you were saying reminds me of a quote from a great author and priest, I think from Canada, Ronald Rolheiser. He said, prayer is relaxing into the goodness of God. And that's like so
beautiful.
Helpful for me, because sometimes prayer, I can think of it as something I have to do, like a state of doing rather than a state of being.
Yeah, boxes to check off or whatever. Yeah,
and or formulaic, whatever. And so relaxing into the goodness of God. Like
I just took a deep breath, like just hearing that.
Yeah,
like
dude,
that's such
honestly.
It just takes the pressure off of your shoulders, like. And not to say that communion and relationship doesn't take our action, it doesn't require our action.
Totally.
And us showing up to do it. But like that's that's probably the hardest step. The rest
Right.
of it is truly learning how to, like you're saying, relax into the goodness of God. What does that mean? What does that look like for you? Like to actually do that, whether that's thinking about all the things we're grateful for and remembering God's faithfulness in our lives, or relaxing into the beauty of nature and just being with him in the midst of that,
Yeah.
or, you know,
Yeah,
like,
you can almost see it on people's faces when they have like a moment of ecstasy or bliss. Like, you think of like the mystics in
mm,
church tradition. Like, you can almost see it in people. Some people have that relaxing into goodness of God in a
like
church
the
pew.
Nashville Dominican sisters.
Right.
Oh my gosh,
Right.
it's
Who
all
we,
over their
dude,
face.
we just, for anyone who is in Nashville or comes through Nashville, visiting the Dominican sisters at their mother house is
It's like
always a good,
retreat.
it's always a good, always a
Even if you
good
go for an
move.
hour. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and you
amazing.
can join them in the evenings for prayer, and just, I mean, they're just all so cool. They're always happy to hang and chat
Yeah.
and stuff. They're always laughing and
But you can see it on
yeah,
their face, right? You can
yeah,
see this
yeah,
glow of what it looks like the fruit of resting in the presence of God, of relaxing into his goodness,
yeah,
you
and
know?
you can see it in someone's face in a church pew, and sometimes you see it in someone's face at the top of a mountain when they've just hiked and they get to they get to the part where
Yeah.
they can have the amazing view and they feel the breeze in their face, and that can also be relaxing into the goodness of God. Like, I think it's more about a disposition of heart,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and just recognizing that He is in all things and that He's working through all things,
Yeah.
and you can find Him anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, He is. Is it omnipresent?
Yeah.
Is that the word?
Yeah.
I always feel like it should be pronounced omnipresent, which obviously it's not. But
Omnipresent.
he
Yeah.
is all places at all times. So prayer really
Yeah.
is possible anywhere, and it does take work to develop a good prayer life,
Yeah.
for sure. It takes work to develop a good anything.
Yeah.
But I think the goal is almost like work those muscles to the point where you
Yeah.
can do it with relative ease.
Yeah.
So you can. I think it takes a great amount of effort to be able to relax into the goodness of God, but it's
It
something to
really
aim
does.
for.
Yeah. Yeah. And it takes practice for sure. And rep counts for sure.
Communion with God is, I think, anyone who's a person of faith would agree. Like, anyone who, like, I'll just say anyone who's a Christian would agree. Like, that's a worthy goal
Yeah.
to have communion with God. And I think
To maintain it too.
to maintain it and to strengthen it, I think it is kind of a spectrum. And that's what I think what we see in holy people. And whether it's people who are super joyful and they just are always believing for miracles and are always putting themselves out there and um loving on the poor and treating everybody with kindness and respect, and
Yeah.
very generous people who are just like, God's got me, so I'm just going to be almost reckless with the way that I just like love
Yeah.
and whatever. And then you also see it in people who are suffering greatly,
Yeah.
but if they like unite their suffering with Jesus's, then there's a joy there. Like, so communion could look a lot of different
Mm,
ways.
totally.
You see it in people and you admire it. I think
Mm,
many of the people who I admire, especially in the faith, they do seem to have that. They do seem to have and continue to foster that communion with God.
yeah.
Um, and I think sometimes we mistake holiness for like following the rules. Like
Mm,
G.K. Chesterton said, "Let your religion be less of a theory and more of a love affair."
mm,
And I think there is
mm.
something to like, um, well, just the word obedience, for example. Sometimes we distill being a Christian down to, do you follow the rules?
Yeah.
Like, if somebody were to ask me if I'm a Christian, my short answer would be yes. That would be my answer. But somebody might evaluate my life or
Mm,
evaluate my way of thinking or whatever and say, oh, you don't fit my definition of what it is to be a Christian. But my answer would be yes. But I would also say, I don't know if I believe perfectly. Like, I don't know that
no, but
my
is that the
faith,
goal?
well, not to me, no, but like, first of all, you're not going to see perfection in my faith. You're not going to see
No,
perfection in the way I live it. I'm not perfect. So that we already can,
we're
obviously,
not going to see
that's
perfection
not a,
in the way that anyone lives it.
right. So that part's not a surprise. But you see people who, even if they don't even if they're obviously not living it perfectly, because who is, you do see people who it seems where the goal is to believe perfectly.
Yeah.
Like you're obviously not going to live it perfectly, but like you believe it, you believe all the right things in all the right way, and you believe everything in the right order of priorities of which it's supposed to be believed, and you believe scripture in the right way.
That's
and
very
you
stressful.
Well, to
Sounding.
me, yeah. But so
It
all
is.
that to say, sometimes we distill holiness down to how strictly you adhere to the faith, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I've always been interested by the fact that the word obedience, it doesn't mean like to blindly follow a command. Obedience, and I don't know if it's from the Latin or the Greek or the Hebrew, and I'm not smart enough, but I know I've read it, that the word obedience most closely translated means to listen attentively. And I'm not saying that we don't have to obey God. We just have to, like, if you just think of it like, if like when you see a little kid listening to their parent, if they listen attentively to what their parent asked them to do, and then they do the exact opposite, I guess that's still technically disobedience. But I just think obedience is more than just I'm gonna do what the good book says to do.
Yeah.
It's like obedience is the practice of listening attentively to the Lord. And I think if you focus on listening to him attentively and making space in your life, making silence. I mean, how can you listen attentively without silence?
Right.
So making more space for silence and for listening attentively and listening closely. I think obedience will be a natural fruit that comes from just putting yourself in that space. So for me, I try to stress less about like I'm going to get communion with God through being a perfect Christian and through doing all the right things and saying all the right things. And, I don't try to think about that really at all. I try to make space to listen to him and listen for him. And I let what comes from those times probably guide me more than I do like any stress about scrupulosity about how I, how I live my faith compared to how somebody else does.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to listen.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And I really love that idea of listening. And just the silent, like, I forget who said this, that silence is the language of God. Maybe that was a Mother Teresa quote. She also said, in the silence of the heart, God speaks, which is so beautiful. And she's one of my girls.
Yes.
Mother
yes.
Teresa.
Some, it was maybe it was Mother Teresa or Saint Teresa or Saint Therese or somebody who
one
said
of the T's.
Silence is God's first language. Maybe.
Okay.
It might have been Saint Augustine. Who the hell knows? But
who knows?
He said something like, or somebody said something like, silence is God's first language. Like that's the language that like you speak most effectively in your first language. You know what I mean? So it's like, God probably speaks most clearly in silence. And there's a whole treasure
like his native
trove.
tongue or something is silence or something.
Yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah. I just said treasure trove.
Treasure trove. No, but like just there's so much there. There's so many different ways that I could take this. But for me, I think in my prayer life and my walk with God, in my desire to find communion with him lately, I've had to enter into silence because I've experienced silence from God more so now than ever before in my life. I mean, and I'm not trying to say that God would speak to me in this big booming God voice all the time, right? It was more him, putting a scripture verse on my heart or just feeling a prompting or a phrase or a vision in prayer or whatever.
Yeah. You always, as long as I've known you, you've had that type of just
connection
link and connection with him.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the way that he revealed so much to me. And in this last 2 years, it's felt like, honestly, it's completely dried up and I haven't known what to do with it. Like I was saying earlier, in the writing of this song, I was not dealing with it well. I was really angry and struggling, and I've had to, but what it's forced me to do is to go back to silence and learn how to stay in silence and not get distracted and not think about a million things. And like literally it's actually been healing for me, I feel like, because silence is good for us. it's a good thing for us to sit in silence, not just for communion with God, but just even for our bodies, for our psyche, for our souls, our entire being, to just kind of like power down
Yep.
and have an awareness and be alive and be aware of your breath and all of those kinds of things, but to be able to enter into silence in a day and age when it's chaotic and noisy and we're constantly listening to a podcast or a episode of a show, or I mean, whatever it is. I'm listening to stuff all day long. I have my headphones in all day long. And this time has really, I don't know, challenged me to enter back into that and attempt to find him in the silence. And I have found him in the silence again in ways that I don't know that I would have done without the struggle of like things not working. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Well, he is in our songs and in our podcasts and in our media that we consume. He is in all of it. He is in a conversation with a close friend. He's in all of it, but I think he's like most easily found in silence. I have some quotes I can hit you with that, and some of them will clear up the quote confusion from earlier.
Okay.
Henry Nouwen said, "Without silence, it is impossible to have a spiritual life."
Whoa.
St. John of the Cross was the one who said,
gosh, wow.
What?
No, I'm just astonished by that, actually. That's pretty challenging. Without silence, it's impossible to have a spiritual life. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah. Impossible. Impossible.
Strong words from Henry.
Yeah. St. John of the Cross is the one who said silence is God's first language.
Okay. Wow, we were way off on that.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Off by 1,500 years or something. Mother Teresa said, God is the friend of silence. God is the friend of silence. St. Ignatius of Loyola said, always try to keep your soul in peace and quiet. Always try to keep your soul in peace and quiet.
A lot easier said than done.
Yeah. But it's, I think, because peaceful and quiet environments are like scientifically proven to foster like less anxiety in the people in those environments than like noisy, chaotic.
Yeah.
There's been studies done on that for sure. I've read them. I just can't quote them right now.
Yeah.
And then last one, Cardinal. Oh, by the way, these quotes, I think I jotted them down reading The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Oh man,
that
what
book?
A good book.
Yeah, that's great.
That's a great shout.
Yeah, so these quotes I think came from that. And the last one, Cardinal Robert Sarah. I think that's how you say it, right? Not Cardinal Robert Sarah.
No, Sarah.
So he said, at the heart of man, there is an innate silence. For God abides in the innermost part of every person. God is silence, and this divine silence dwells in us. God carries us, and we live with him at every moment by keeping silence. Nothing will make us discover God better than his silence inscribed in the center of our being.
Wow.
And if we do not cultivate this silence, then how can we find God? So, I think we're in good company here talking about the importance of silence. And
it reminds me of something that my friend Heather Kim said to me recently. Sweet friend. She's so wise, and she said we have to redeem what silence is. Because, including myself, I think a lot of us, when we experience silence or feel silence from God, we can equate it with absence. I say this a lot, that silence does not equal absence. And all of these quotes are just like showcasing that silence is God, like is his language, is the way that he communes with us and where he meets us in the depths of our hearts and the place where we can kind of detach ourselves from all of these other things that so often are distracting or telling us who we are, or where we're finding our identity, or whatever it might be. All of these other things that take our focus away. Silence is the one place where we can just be in communion, meeting each other completely as we are, like transparent, everything that we're carrying, and just find each other in that space,
Yeah, it reminds me of one of my favorite other lines from the song Communion. Remind my anxious soul to breathe you in and to be still again. Here in a holy mystery, which this is for sure a holy mystery, talking just about how God is in the innermost silence of our hearts. Like let's not. I'm not going to pretend I fully understand what I'm saying here, but but when I hear that line, remind my anxious soul to breathe you in, to be still again. It just puts me in that place of rest, which I think is really ultimately what I find myself calling out for as I'm singing this song, as I'm listening to this song. I'm just like, I just know I want to find my place of rest with him. And in the midst of an anxious day or an anxious week or an anxious quarter century, it's like, you know, that just is helpful.
Yeah.
So there's so much I love about this song, and there's so much I love about this song and its ability to kind of foster more thoughts than just the song itself, like has just happened with us.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know about production, because I love this song. Ben Shive produced this one. Okay.
It,
yeah, crushed it, obviously.
Yeah. This was a special one because as soon as I showed it to him, the day I showed it to him, he was like, "Oh, I know exactly where I'm going. And he started building the track. He knew that he wanted to have slides on it, and I had kind of brought in this reference track from Casey Musgrave's record, which, you know, I love, Golden Hour record.
Yeah.
And so we kind of knew right away we want to take this in a kind of country vibey direction, Casey Musgrave's Golden Hour direction for sure.
Yeah.
And that's how it turned out, and layered vocals on it. And it's such it never gets huge. I don't know. It's just a really sweet experience.
Yeah.
Sweet ride from start to finish, you know?
It's great. It's definitely a great homage to that Golden Hour record, which we both love and have listened to a million times.
One of our COVID records.
And it's a beautiful song. I love it. I hope anybody listening to this will go and check out the song Communion after, because I love it. And I don't even think we didn't even scratch the surface of it here today, but
I know we didn't, but I think this is good enough for now.
Yeah. Maybe that should be the title of our podcast. Good Enough with Sarah and Dom. For now. Yeah, I like that.
Good enough for now.
I can be like, welcome to Good Enough. And you can go, for now. All right.
We've already got it. Tagline and all.
All right, cool. Well, thanks, Sarah, for joining me in studio today.
Thanks for having me, Dominic. All you out there, go listen to Communion and take a moment to just breathe in deep today, y'all. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Take a deep breath.
I'll end with a Richard Rohr quote. Silence is in and of itself a state of being. It is a reality in and of itself. Everything came out of that silence. So do with that what you will.
Beautiful. Bye.